have faith in God is not a stagnant state, it's a journey. As a believer, we should grow in our knowledge of God and His Word. Walk with Alan Cutting and many other believers as together we walk the believer's journey.
Aloha, and welcome again to the Believer's Journey. I'm really thankful that you are joining me today, and I have to tell you that today my guest is just extra super special to my heart and to my family's heart. He's just an amazing man. His name is Dean Rush. And hello, Dean. How are you doing?
Oh, great. Good to be with you, Alan.
So today we're going to talk about Dean and his life, and it's extraordinary. Dean has gone through a life that I think most people take 14 lives to go through to get to where he's at. He's an amazing guy. Our topic today is going to be ethical standards in business and life. And I've learned a lot from Dean. He is just really, I can't tell you how special it is to have you on my program here today.
Well, special to be with you, Alan. You and Susan have meant a lot to us over the years. And I think God has blessed you as He has us in having some practical application of the gospel.
So let me introduce you to our audience. Basically, Dean is, well, I guess you do a lot of counseling now. Is that true?
I do counseling for people that are out of jobs, and especially those that have lost a lot of hope because of finance and opportunity. And of course, with swing in the energy business in Houston, we see a lot of variance and a lot of turmoil.
Yeah. So Dean here, I'm going to read this. This is kind of a little bio we have put together. If you go to our website, to thebelieversjourney.net, you can see Dean as a guest for this particular program. And we have his bio. We also have your book listed on our website. And there's a link on the book itself. You click on it, it'll go right to Amazon. And if you want to purchase his book, you'll have to get through all the airplane and airline metaphors, but it's really an amazing book about trials in life and getting from one place to the next with a lot of integrity. So anyway, so Dean offers wise and spiritual counsel to men, women, and families facing dramatic and often unexpected changes in their lives. If you're dealing with like job loss or divorce or other personal and family crises or trials, what he calls Flying Free, which is the title of his book, offers valuable lessons and provides a flight plan for success that will guide you through most affordable life of tests, basically. Dean has had a very distinguished career in the Air Force. He was a pilot during the Vietnam War conflict, if you call it. And he was also, well, you did operations, special ops, weren't you?
Yes. Yeah, I worked with some outstanding, very brave folks, unheralded heroes that were in special operations.
Now, were you ever shot down in Vietnam?
I was. Actually, I actually ended up in a rice paddy. It was the flattest, easiest, softest thing I could see as we were hitting the ground. So it worked out fine, but I didn't have the trauma that a lot of folks had in that position. So I'm very thankful.
Yeah. Well, God has blessed you in a lot of ways. It seems like you get to a point where there's something happening and somehow He's there to help you walk through. And you've been wise enough to take that counsel from Him. I've noticed in my life that I've known you, you've had that wisdom to make that decision to say, okay, here's our problem. Okay, God, where are you? Okay, let me follow your guide.
I found in life, Alan, and I think we get in a hurry sometimes to make, and I'm guilty of this, or I have been guilty of this probably in my younger life more, but we're so directed by society at solving our own problems. And certainly God wants us to think our way through problems, but I had to learn to rely very tactfully on him. And in every case, if I would wait on his purpose for the event, I would get through it. Not because I was smart or intelligent or wise. It was because I allowed something outside myself to guide me. And I think that's quite often what happens to all of us as we get into trials and turmoil in our lives. And we all experience trials and turmoils.
Yeah. I do think, though, there are some people, and you say this in your book, it's really good, where the failures or the trials or the tests and the hardships we go through are just a stepping stone for success, basically. And this is my paraphrase, but that's kind of what you say in your book.
Yeah, James 1:2, I believe, this is paraphrasing, but James tells the other disciples, we need to be thankful for all challenges because they develop perseverance. And as humans, we say sometimes we've had too much perseverance. We just want to slow down. But perseverance is necessary, and God can give you strength through that element in your life.
Yeah. Now, I want to read something that's, I had this somewhere else, and I think I must have left it at home, but in your book, it tells us, just so everyone in our audience understands, and I'm going to go through some of these areas, not only here in your book, but what I know of you personally. For example, it says here on the flap here that you served 11 years in the Air Force, correct?
That's correct.
And that you were in Special Forces, you were in Air Force, you earned the Silver Star, the Distinguished Flying Cross, and 10 Air Medals for Valor. So
they were gifts.
So your humility really is before you, is what you're saying.
No, I don't know that I earned them. There were people that probably did a lot more than I. I was thankful for the acknowledgement, but again, a lot of people made a lot more sacrifices than I did. So I don't really honestly know how I ended up with all of that, but I'm thankful.
Now, I know that you and a friend started a airline company. And I guess you would take packages and you fly them to, I'm not going to name your competitors or whoever bought you out. I don't know if you want to do that or not. Was that Emerald Airlines?
That was Emerald Airlines. And you mentioned that some friends and I, some guys with pilot coal, they were other pilots that I had flown with in Vietnam, and we started a coal company. I didn't stay in it very long, but we used the money we made there to start Emerald, and we started it with two guys, all of us former Air Force people. And the idea was we'd get to continue flying, but we learned very quickly you need money to start an airline. So we leased an airplane, very inefficient airplane, the Gulfstream 1. And we would fly packages. The idea was, and this is before all of the development of the package industry now, but we flew around the state of Texas from Austin, San Antonio, Houston Hobby, Dallas Love, back to Austin. And we made that trip around 2 nights a week, and we would carry baggage or carry these packages. And we didn't have enough money to fly outside the state. And there was another airline that didn't have enough money to fly into the state, but they were in New York, Chicago, and some other places. And so every morning at 4:20, we would land at Dallas Love, and Federal Express would land in Dallas Love. We would exchange packages, so everybody thought we were both going all over the U.S. But it was quite an experience. And because there were only 3 of us in the beginning, if you called to have us pick up a package or have a package flown, you would call, and whoever was on the desk at that particular time would answer Emerald Airlines. And they would say, "May I speak with your operations department?" And then you would say yes, and you would put them on hold, and you come off and say, "This is operations department." We didn't have enough money for more than 3 of us. So the other guys were great men, Dick Martell and Bill Ford, and they were fantastic men. But yeah, we were all pilots, and that was a dream. And then a few years later, the company dissolved into what is all over Texas now, FedEx. They kind of took over those routes and did a great job. And of course, Fred Smith did a great job of building that company. So
that's pretty impressive. Another thing I know that you've done that I think is pretty remarkable. You were hired, I guess, after the 9/11. You were the person called by the President Bush to go look into the Pentagon, into that crash?
Yes, actually, I was one of 17 people around the country who in the aviation business, and our task at that time was simply to, well, as the president said, he walked through the room, and I have a vivid memory of him walking through the room and saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, this will never again happen on my watch." And he walked out. And that was our task, to try to figure out how to investigate what had happened and come up with methods of preventing it in the future. And it was a very interesting time. Very, very intelligent, wise people were involved. Secretary Condoleezza Rice was heading the group up, and then we were privileged to be a part of it. But some of the airport security facets now came out of that, and it was a tough time for our country.
Yeah. Also, I understand, or I know that you were vice president for, I guess, is it the Central Region for American Airlines? You were a senior vice president?
Yes. And they had a general aviation company. And then I was senior VP of the Central Region of the country, and very interesting responsibility for a guy that never wanted to be in a big company. So I learned.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I learned a tremendous amount from that experience, and I can give you a bit of the background about how I came to be with the company. Because honestly, I always said I want to start my own company. I didn't want to be a big company. And as you know, Alan, I experienced some pretty serious cancer. And we had a small business in Lockhart, Texas, a couple of small businesses, and they were doing well. And suddenly I got sick. And essentially, they wound down to nothing. And I had given up completely, thought I was going to die. Vicki, my wife, and my 2 great children were working, and they were keeping everything going. And but I was contributing nothing. I was home on the couch, and just me and our yellow lab. and with not much future expectation of future. So I finally just said, Lord, I've had enough. And I got down on my knees, and I was honestly ready to give up the ghost. I figured that everything was better without me at that point. And I started getting better. It wasn't a daily thing. It wasn't a bright light or anything like that. But every day I began to have a different attitude that, if I fought on a little farther, I tell this hoping that if someone's listening, they'll go through the same thing. You just have to take it one day at a time. And over a period of time, I was able to get well enough that I could get out. And it turned out, surprisingly, that out of the blue, about 6 months later, I received a call from a great guy that had worked with me 10 years before when I was at Emerald and running Emerald. And Dale called and he said, no one would hire me. So he called and he said, how would you like to come to Grand Rapids, Michigan and work for American Airlines? And I said, yes. I didn't hesitate. I said, now, Dale, you need to understand, I don't have a long expectation for life. They've given me a certain percentage to live, maybe a year or a little more. And he said, well, if you would come, we'll just need some of your expertise. So Vicki and I piled the furniture in a couple of U-Hauls and we drove to Grand Rapids, Michigan. I got out of the U-Hauls, we unloaded. I went to meet Dale and I said, oh, by the way, what does this pay? And he said, and he told me the figure, it was exactly 10% of what I had made the year I'd gotten sick. And so you have to know I've tithed in reverse. But we were able to go from there. And then 11 years later, I was able to be president of that group. Yeah.
And you mentioned that that you had fought cancer, and I'm going to let our audience know you contracted Agent Orange during Vietnam. This is correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and like a lot of our veterans who went to Vietnam, this has been a major problem with a lot of them. I know I have friends of mine who went to Vietnam and came back with Agent Orange. And it reacts differently. I understood some people, one guy I knew took a fingernail, went like this down his arm, and it would turn bright red, the whole thing. And then, we talked about the different ways that it interfered with your life.
Yeah, it changes, I'm told scientifically anyway, that it changes your DNA. And it therefore apparently is prone to change the cellular makeup in your body. And of course, cancer is just an accumulation of additional cells, unwanted cells. And that's apparently what it does. So
yeah,
an interesting time.
Well, fortunately, you're still here. You've added a tremendous amount to my life. You and I met while we were both attending Community Bible Church in San Antonio, Texas. Right. The funny thing is, Dean was running a Bible study in his home, and so Susan and I went to the Bible study, and we liked it. It was. I think what it was is that I connected with Vicki. She's that sarcastic, funny person that I loved. That humor, So she and I mean, it was really funny. You just go back and forth, and I loved it. And you're just so great, and that's just what connected us right there.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, everyone always says that. I connected with Vicki.
Well, now Dean was you actually became our executive pastor at the church.
I did. It was a real honor. Alan and I attended a church started by Robert Emmett, who's a fantastic speaker, and still is. He's now retired from Community Bible, but in fact has started a church out in Colorado. But Robert, I had been in the corporate world and retired, and Robert and I were having lunch one day, and he said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure. I've retired and I'm probably going to relax a little bit." He said, "How would you like to help us at the church part-time?" And I soon learned when Robert said part-time, that meant maybe 60 hours a week. But I worked there along with General Chuck Carroll, who was retired from the Air Force. We were both in the same position, and we quickly found there was a mission there. So I was fortunate enough to be named by Robert as the executive pastor, and it was a tremendous opportunity because the church was growing at an unprecedented rate of, I don't remember, Alan, you may, but it was 17 to 20% a year.
Yeah, I thought it was like 20%, but basically, from what I understand, we were the 7th or the 11th fastest growing church in the United States.
Yeah.
And I think we became the largest church in San Antonio. I think we surpassed Cornerstone.
Mm-hmm.
So to have 25, I think we had 25,000 members at that point, at your height before you left.
Yeah, when I got there, I remember I thought it was a large church because it was maybe 4,000 and attending, and it was a God thing. Everything we did, that's what was so exciting. We saw God's hand in with the foresight and the wisdom that God had poured into Robert Emmett. It was just fun to be along for the ride and see things that occurred.
Yeah. You know, one of the neatest things, I have to tell everybody this, I was during the period that we were in your Bible study, and during this period, I think this is like 2008, I may be wrong, my wife would know, I was asked to perform a wedding, and here I'm basically been in Texas since 2000, and I didn't know all the laws. All I know is where I lived before, you either had to be ordained by the church or you had to be licensed by the state, like in Hawaii. You're licensed by the state, or same thing with Illinois where I lived, to be able to perform weddings. Well, I thought the same thing in Texas. So I'm here and I'm thinking, well, I don't have a license to do this. So I was talking to you one night and she said, well, let me see what I can do about that. You know, because I wanted the license to do the wedding ceremony. And the funniest thing is, it was about 2 months later, I was like, is this ever going to happen? And finally you came up and you handed me this envelope, and I opened it up and it said, you know, Alan Cuddy, associate pastor of Community Bible Church. I'm like, I'm not looking to be associate pastor here. I was looking for your license. And you said, you well deserved and is past due. I remember those were your words. So, and
it was past due. You were in ministry and everything, very much admired because of it. But God worked through you. It still is, obviously.
Yeah, and it's funny because I have a lot of people who were, I don't know, I guess you have people within the church who are leaders that a lot of the lay people, a lot of the people in the church would look at them as their pastor, because it's not always easy to, you know, touch base with the senior pastor who's got 25,000 people to look after. So you find a pastor of lower means, lower area. So, but that was really cool. Then I find out in Texas, you don't have to have anything. Anybody can get married by anybody. It's just weird in Texas. So, you know, I thought, well, that's kind of strange, but that was fun. But I really was honored. And I know that Ray Jones had came up one time, because I always teased Ray Jones about wearing, you know, fufu, you know, because I'm always aloha wear, and I had these pants, and I always go to Hawaii and I get these stuff. And his son teased me one time, or told me to tease his dad about getting some kind of aloha wear. And as I did this, this is before I received the, associate pastor. I said something to him about getting him these pants that were all flowers. And he says, I can't believe I voted for you. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Well, it was that next Monday night is when you handed it to me. It was just a few days later. Oh, that's what Ray was talking about, because the elders had to vote for this to get for me. So.
and you were 100% acclamation for that responsibility, Alan. Everyone knew you because of your work, so it was well deserved.
Well, it's never easy when you've got, I'm not even staff, and I'm doing the baptisms and, teaching, and the choir, and all these other things. It's really amazing. But I've always been taught. Lon Ekdahl, who is my pastor growing up, he always taught about being involved and active in your local church. And so I always believed that, and that's what you do. Well,
it's imperative. And, when Paul wrote in Romans, he talks a lot about that with the people to whom he's addressing that book. And of course, he wrote Romans when he was in prison. He's telling people that the way they truly participate as Christians is to mentor people. And to do that, community is very, very important. And the church is community.
Yeah. So I want you to tell our audience, because when you were here and you had this amazing job, you had this amazing house, you had this amazing life here in San Antonio, I want you to tell our audience why you're not here.
We love San Antonio. We literally enjoyed the friends and you and Susan and all of the people that we were privileged to get to know there. But our son is a pastor, and he had 3 beautiful daughters, and one of those daughters is special needs, and she has an affliction called Jacobson syndrome, and it's a deletion of the 11th Q chromosome, and scientifically. But Vicki has a very, very special relationship with Lily, because Lily is nonverbal. She has difficulty hearing, and high on the autistic spectrum. And somehow, Vicki and Lily have developed this ability to communicate that allows Vicki to have some excellent capability of mentoring Lily, and Lily loves her grandma. And so we dropped out in San Antonio, and we went to Austin to be near Ryan and Lana and Lily. And we were there about 4 years, about 4 years, and didn't think he would ever move. And then he was called to a larger church in Katy, Texas, which is where we now live. And when he was called here, we still had the obligation, or felt an obligation, to help with Lily. And Ryan announced to Vicki and I that we were called also. And we said we didn't know God made conference calls, but we ended up coming to Katy, and it's been a great experience. And my son is now our senior pastor. We go to service, and he's our son when he's not in the pulpit, and we laugh, and just you can't, as you all have children, probably you will know that you see your child as they were. Our son is now mature, but he's still our son, and just has a beautiful family. But that's how we ended up in Katy. I don't know, it's a long way around. But
no, I think it's important that people know this story, because I was there when you were trying to sell your house for 5,000 years. At least that's what it seemed like. It felt like to you. Yeah. And but I know the struggles you went through in all of this, because I was there and I watched this, and I think it's a neat story that you went to because of your granddaughter. And I think that's something that I think we lack in our country is that connection in family. And I think that, Ryan, your son, he's an amazing guy. He's an amazing pastor. I have at least 2 of his books, if not 3. He's an accomplished writer. I think one of them is called Coming Home or something like that. But,
Yeah, he has the most popular book he's written is called Walls, and it's about all those walls we face as we go through life, and how through God you can break them down. And that one has sold a lot of books, and he's in the midst of another, and he's finishing his doctorate, and we're very proud of him. But he's still our son. We remember.
Yeah.
Nailed the door shut until he cleaned his clothes.
Well, you have an incredible family. Dean, God has truly blessed you and blessed your life and has blessed your family. I mean, honestly, there's not many people that I consider in my heart that it goes flutter when you're going to be around. And you and Vicky are one of those people, or 2 of those people.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. She's very much as I said, I follow her around. So
anyway, I wanted to move on to our topic, ethical standards in business and life. And I wanted to give my story first. And I want you to talk, because I know that I'm not a business person. However, when I married Susan, she was working for her father. Her father started a business. It was a promotional products business, and it sold flags and custom made products and so forth. And at the time I was teaching at the university. I was a Bible professor at National Christian University, and I resigned from there. And I just wondered, Susan, what do you do? And we started doing that. And I realized that, hey, we could do more than just San Antonio. I taught myself how to build a website. So I did. It was the most rinky-dink looking website in the world. But it took off, and all of a sudden we're making 3 times the money and so forth. But there was something that people asked me. I've even gone to Moldova, and I've had a teacher of business ask me every year I go. He asked me to teach to his class about business and how I became successful. And I told him, there's nothing business about it. I don't know anything about business. All I know are the standards and the ethical standards and the principles of the Bible that God teaches us. And as a pastor, as a Bible teacher, I took those things that I knew from the ministry and applied them to the business. And that's the only way that I see that it's grown. The funny thing is now, for several years, and especially like last year, we sell to trade shows for people to do booths and banners and things. Well, the trade show industry, as you know, is closed the entire year. We lost lots of money. We couldn't pay ourselves. It was just amazing. But we didn't go hungry. We didn't lose our house. We didn't, nothing. And we were fine. God took care of us. And I really believe whether you're making a lot of money or you're not, the value of everything is integrity. And it's in what you honor and give to God in order to follow him to bless you in any area or any direction he's taking you in your business. And what do you think about that?
Well, I totally endorse your words, Alan. And from my experience, I remember when I was young, my father died when I was in my teens, and missed him tremendously, as all of us do at that age. I was learning. He was a great mentor. And I remember distinctly that we lived on a farm. There were 4 boys. My mom had a high school education, but we had just purchased the farm, had a large debt. And a well-meaning grandfather sent a social worker out to our home. And when the social worker came, we sat around the kitchen table, and she began by saying, Mrs. Rush, if you're going to raise these boys, you're going to have to make some more money, which means additional education. And my mother said something like, well, how do I do that? And she said, well, the boys could be in foster care while you're doing this. And at that point, my next younger brother and I, who just retired as chairman of a large bank chain in Indianapolis, escorted the lady to her car. And we were walking back into the house crying. And I mean, really crying. And both of us said, we will never be poor. We will never be poor. And so, unfortunately, that became my scorecard. And I wanted to do anything I could to become monetarily happy, successful. And then at some point when the children were young and I had made a lot of mistakes in my life, I went home one Wednesday, I think just before Thanksgiving. Vicki was talking to our children and saying, we're going to go see Grandpa and Grandma Morgan in California, her parents. And Ryan said, Mom, is Dad going? And she said, no, he's too busy. And at that point, I suddenly realized I had set my objectives on the wrong target. I was shooting for the wrong thing, and I was about to lose my family. So I'm embarrassed when I say this, but I had to totally rearrange my life at that point and understand that God only gives you one family. And I'd made some huge mistakes. Everything was about power. It was about, and I was successful. But I had to give it up before I could start building it back. So,
yeah. Well, one of the comments I think that you have is that faith and family are two things that money cannot buy. I think that's your statement.
Yes. Most important things, and I tell people when I speak, you can buy, it could be the cash, the car, the house, but everything you buy is going to rust and wither at some point. It's going to decay, but faith and family just keep giving back. And if you can develop your targets, make that the target of your life, everything else falls into place. You have a support team, you have a way of getting through tough times, and a way to develop grace through one another. And Vicki's given me a lot of grace over the years.
Well, that's what wives tend to do. We aren't always, men are not always the smartest people to walk the earth.
Yeah. I'm in the, I've been told I'm in the upper third of the bottom fifth of wisdom.
I have some scriptures here, and I want to read one, and then I want to talk about, the ethical standards that you see that are important to you, that I think that you believe that we are maybe missing, or that those who are in business need to capture in order to find true life. Okay, because I know what you mean by it. I know you know what I mean by that, and I want you to explain that. But I want to read this scripture. It's in Proverbs 11:3, and it says, "The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them." And what I want to say real quick before we go to you is that I know that when we have people in our business and we get phone calls from all over the country, sometimes in other countries, to order our products, and there are times when our manufacturers, or even us ourselves, will make a mistake. And sometimes it's not our mistake. It might be the customer's mistake. And when they come and call and complain, or they need something different, a lot of times for me, I believe in replacing something to help the customer. It's not necessarily my bottom line that I need to worry about, but it's my customer's bottom line. It's there that I need to help. Sometimes it's at their fault, and I'll say, why don't we just split the cost? Or I don't need to make a double profit, so how about just my cost is what I'll do, so that I don't do that, because I don't like it done to me. what do you think about all that? And I really want to hear what you have to say about the standards ethically that we need to have in business and life.
Well, it's paramount to success. And if you look at the truly successful people in life, and I'm not talking about monetary success, I'm talking about people that are satisfied with their life, that they're driven by God to perform a service to society. They all have reached a point where they can give back. I'm thinking of people like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Norm Miller, but he's the chairman of the board of Interstate Batteries. And the first thing Norm will tell you when you hear him speak or you speak to him is that he's formed a company where they give back. He ties the income from the company. He ties his own income. He has formed a number of ministries. Vicki and I were privileged to be part of one where about 90% of the people from outside the United States that come here to go to seminary and supposedly return to their home country, many of these people came from third world countries, and Norm and some others began to realize that once they're here for 3 years to attend seminary, they didn't want to go home. We have a society that's so beautiful that they want to remain. So what he started, and I'm using this only as an example of what ethical process and thought process can do in a positive way. He started a process whereby money from the United States would go to build seminaries in those countries. As a result, it was much more efficient. The people remained there. They received their theological education. They could minister. But I use him as an example often because I believe that type of ethical example should be found wherever we are in our businesses. And it's simple in a way when you're operating a business to see what just being a part of God's community can be and how it helps other people.
Yeah. There's another script, a couple of more scriptures I want to read, and this one is also in Proverbs. This is Proverbs 21:3, and it says, "To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice." And I think a lot of times we forget that the right living is really what God is looking for in us. And it's not that we prosper, it's not that we become famous or rich or any of that, but that we live and make wise decisions and live in a right manner. And we're just, we're fair to other people. We have mercy with other people. That brings me to my other verse I want to talk about. And I think I heard this the first time was by a professor of mine. He actually became the Bible he was a Bible professor at Azusa Pacific University. His name is Bruce Boloian. And he has on his wall, Micah 6:8, and it says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you is to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." And I think that when we talk about ethics, when we talk about standards, when we talk about business, when we talk about life, when we talk about family, I think this verse holds the key to all of it.
It does, because it expounds on the gift that we are given, I think, by God to endure. And a lot of life is enduring. We've seen it during the pandemic. We've seen it during the ice storms. We've seen it in so many challenges in life. But the whole perception of life being easy is wrong. I don't think that God ever allowed us to, to have the wisdom that it's going to take to think ahead of Him. Yeah. And so, saying there is quite pertinent to life itself.
You know, Chuck Swindoll wrote a book one time, a long time ago, called 3 Steps Forward, 2 Steps Back. And that's just exactly what it is. And I think, and I don't know if it's the generation or if just because of our lack of patience, I don't know. But we need to understand it's not always going forward only. We have back steps. We have the failures. You know, failures, without failure, our successes would be probably very limited. What do you think?
No, I think we learn from those times that we fail. I certainly have. So I've learned a lot. I think that God provides us with the strength. My favorite Bible verse is Deuteronomy 31:6. In fact, it's stated more than, I think, 300 times in the Bible. But Moses, if you'll remember, had fought the whole nation of Israel. They had fought to get back to their homeland in Israel. And they're about to cross the Jordan River, and Moses was old. And God spoke to him and said, "You're too old. I want you to hand the reins for leadership off to your number 2 guy, Joshua." And Moses told Joshua, and he said, "I can't do it. I just can't do it. I followed you." And Moses relayed some words that God had said to him, and they are, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. For the Lord your God will never leave you or abandon you, even in the face of your enemy." And sometimes in life, our enemy can be financial. It can be those times that you've spoken about, Alan. We've all faced that enemy in some way. Maybe it's our own action, but he is with us even at the time we're facing our enemy. So I believe the words that you spoke are more than valid. They apply to all of us.
Yeah. You know, you have a lot of statements that I put down on paper. I'm sure I can't read all of them, but there are all these little, everybody has these little quick, fun statements that make learning out of them. And for example, you have a forced change may put you exactly where you should have been all along. And I like that. That's really your song. Because, here you are, you're going into professional basketball. That's something we didn't talk about, and then you're off moving on to the Air Force, which then you're moving on to your one company to another, and then so forth. And you've moved from state to state to city all over. And I like this. A forced change may put you exactly where you should have been all along. And I think that's true. If we watch what God does in our lives and we move that direction, we'll see God creates this understanding and teaching in our lives because of that. And I see that wisdom in you because of all these things. And I'm sure Vicky's loved to move 14,000 times, right? So Susan's the same way, but it helps.
Well, it does. And Vicky lived all over the world. Of course, she was her parents were in the military. Her dad was in the Army. And she started grade school in Japan, junior high in Germany, I think senior high school or part of her high school in the U.S., graduated from college or high school and started college in Ethiopia. And she married a farm boy from Indiana. So as we have learned over the years, and she taught me this, you never leave friends. You just make more friends. Yeah. And that's been a piece of advice from her that I've learned to live with and love because it's exactly right.
Yeah. There's two more things I want to say that I want to speak that you wrote down. One is this: problem solving doesn't have to be difficult. Now, I believe that only because I think Jesus taught us that decision making and things to do and go places are easy. Especially in Matthew 11:28, when he says, those who are weary and heavy burdened down, follow me. My yoke, I consider a yoke a guidance system, is easy, and my burden is light. So he teaches us this. And I think your words here are perfectly in line with Jesus.
Well, I would hope so. But God gives us, I truly believe that God gives us that direction, but we have to listen. And it's imperative that we learn that lesson, because if we him and just follow his path, he'll get us there.
Yeah, and the last one here that you say is, in the midst of the storm, use faith. I mean, really, what else is there?
Faith is the strongest asset that we have in our lives. You can live with very little water, as long as you have some. You can live with very little money. Some people have none. You can live with health, as long as you have some. But if you lose faith, you lose the hope. And God gives us hope. He sent us Jesus to give us hope for all of our sins, for all of the things that we've done wrong. And we all do a lot. I've done my part. And we've all done our part. But it's faith that really gives us the strength to carry.
Yeah. And I'm pretty fortunate in the fact that it kind of comes easy to me. It's unfortunate that I don't always make the best decisions, but knowing that God's going to take care of me, knowing that, if I follow him, it's pretty easy to know this and understand it. My problem is that I'll close my eyes sometimes and just say, well, I may want to take this other side step, and then I get myself in trouble.
I know that feeling.
All too well, right?
When I look at my wife and I get the rolling eyes award.
I have the same wife. Oh, that's funny. Okay, real quickly, you got a few minutes here, and I want to talk about this. Now, you have a Bachelor of Arts from DePauw University, and it's in Business Administration. And also you have a Master's in Public and Business Administration from Golden Gate University, right? Mm-hmm. But lately now, you've been more connected with Liberty. You've got your Master's of Arts in Religion from Liberty University, from the seminary there. And I understand you're also teaching now over there at Liberty University. Yes,
I teach a course having to do with business, and it really has to do a lot with what you mentioned earlier. It's on ethics and development of working with people, and it's called organizational behavior in the School of Business. And I teach undergraduates and some graduate students. And the whole purpose is to acquaint them with the necessity of working with people, which is what business is. Certainly you want the income, but to obtain the income, no matter what business you're in, you have to work with people. So understanding how they're organized, becoming a part of their team, and understanding that they're God-gifted people. And if you can find their gifts and work in concert with those, their gifts, things work out pretty well. And I think whether you're in the ministry or whether you have a business, I listen to Susan talk to people about things that are so unrelated to business, but she's connecting in a relationship.
Same thing with pastors. I think if a pastor preaches a sermon and runs off the stage and runs away and doesn't want to be connected with, he's going to lose his audience. He's going to lose his following. And we have to be there as people who connect with people. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what I see.
Yeah. Yeah. And during the first year I was with American, I worked with a group in Grand Rapids, ran a fixed base operation, which is where executive airplanes go for fuel maintenance and sales sometimes. And there was a customer there who was really, how can I put it? He was tough. He demanded a lot from our people. The employees didn't like him. And but he was our biggest customer. He spent more money with the company buying fuel, parts for his airplane, and so forth, than anyone else on the base. And I tried to determine exactly how I could relay that to the employees. And so I told him it didn't make any difference. And then I had a luncheon for everybody. Our employees and this gentleman. And I started it off by asking him what he thought of what was happening there. And he said, I think this is great. And I said, okay, what do you want us to do? And he said very simply, just do what you advertise. You advertise good service, you advertise fair prices, you advertise support for my customers. He was a charter pilot, had an airplane that flew people around. You advertise you're going to keep my airplane clean. He said, just do what you advertise. And the employees then looked at him and said, you know what? He's not too far out of bounds. He just wants what we say we will do. And I think quite often in life, if we do what God tells us to do and we do what he says to do, things are going to turn out pretty well.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of impressive, the life you've had, the long, life you've had. You're not stopping. You're not quitting. You're continuing to go on. And I like that. I can't see myself ever retiring, if you will, and stop ever teaching the Bible. Something I think I'll always do. It's funny right now, I don't have a full-time place at a school or university, but I go to Moldova, every year if possible and teach over there. I teach a class here every single week in my church. And I do this every week and I teach the world. So I think it's important that we continue to continue. And I think that God is blessing you probably because one reason is that alone.
Well, you're the same, Alan, and I'm not trying to just give accolades to you. I think that if everyone that's listening to this broadcast understands that they have a place, and you're right, in the Bible, I've never found the word retirement. You see where people sleep with their fathers and so forth in death, but we're going to die someday. But while we're here, we need to do as much as we can to further the kingdom.
Yeah. So for everybody, I want to lift up this book so you see it again. Flying Free. I'm going to actually put this on our website under our list of books. I actually recommend books that I've read that I really like, and I've read this and I had to go back through it again just recently when I knew you were coming on my program. And it'll be in our book section. So if people want to click on it, it'll take them right to Amazon and you can order it there. I also noticed that people were selling, there's used copies of this also. So this is a hard copy. Do you make any soft copies of this or no?
No, they did the hard copy. In fact, Alan, if the audience would like, if they order them through your page, I'll be glad to sign them. And the money that I make from these now goes to missions. So whatever they would like, as long as I can get, I think the Mailing cost is $3.80 or something like that.
So if you'd like, I could always put your email on my as a link on my website if you'd like that.
Sure.
Okay, I'll do that. And
have that for folks, because it's not that it may put you to sleep. It's a good sleep aid, but it's no. That's the purpose of the book, is just to let people know that life is going to be good if they follow the good example of Jesus.
Yeah, and it's got great stories in here. It's got great analogies that put you on the track that you need to walk for wise living. It really is really remarkable. I like the book a lot. So I remember when you got it. I have my own signed copy. So anyway, it's been great having you here, Dean. I just think you're the world of you. I know many of my friends think the world of you, and God bless you. And hopefully you get out of your hotel room soon, back into your home when they fix it up.
They will.
Okay. Well, aloha, everyone, and thank you for joining me today and us, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.